every white person living has been made to feel like the bad guy. We have been lectured by Black intellectuals, by Jewish intellectuals, by white liberals. They told us that we were racist for existing. They said we should feel guilty, we should feel racist for existing, for occupying space, for speaking in the conversation, committing microaggressions. If we try to help them, we're a white savior. If we move into the neighborhood, we're gentrifying. If we're empathetic and cry, wipe away your white tears and do the work. This is the attitude. This is what white people have been told. This is the utter contempt and disdain that we have been held in for the past 20 or 30 years. We have been made to feel like the bad guy and guilted like this, getting this moral lecture. And meanwhile, this is how they feel about us. We're being told to exist in a space is by itself racist. To have cops is like the Ku Klux Klan. But Black people kill white people. White people forgive them and they say, we don't believe you. You're racist. Yes, we do have a racism problem in the country. It's everyone else. Whites are the least racist. Obviously, demonstrably, whites are the most empathetic, the least prejudiced. We are the most hospitable. That's why so many whites are sucker liberals. It is everybody else that is racist against us.
All right. So let's unpack this. I want to start off with you, Nicole. What are your thoughts about what he said?
Well, first, just like the chat is saying, he's Mexican. Let's keep it a buck, right? When we start talking about race and those kind of matters, bring your most honest self to the table. Mexican American. Welcome to the world, right? Mr. Fuentes. I'm going to just make that point. But with that said, he is a notorious racist and more so a shock jock. You know, think back to the days of Howard Stern way, way back when, where they say anything for clicks, for likes, for people to keep talking about it. But in this clip, the point he's trying to make is that the shoe is now officially on the other foot. Because there was a time when white folk were incredibly racist and incredibly biased. Now we're in a situation where we did not learn from the history of what happened. As we know, we're doomed to repeat it. But now the shoe is on the other foot. Minorities feel like they're a special protected class. Nothing they do is absolutely wrong. In fact, there's some shades of right. And even when we do wrong, we were talking about the Carmelo Anthony case. There's no doubt about it. Carmelo admitted to killing Austin Metcalf. But here are Black people saying, so what? He killed him. He should go free. He should go free. He's a Black man. Black men should go free. We think about the case down in Florida with the 3 little boys. The one little boy put the rocks in the girl's mouth, the 12-year-old girl that they raped, right? All of them confessed to the rape. Their parents are saying, how dare you lock up Black boys? How dare you lock up Black boys? But they raped a little Black girl. Where does it end? Are we ever going to learn the lesson about racism? Underneath the skin, we're all the same. We are all God's children. And I know that sounds like a very fluffy kind of answer to this, but we're bound to repeat the same things over and over again if we don't learn the lesson. If we don't stop letting people say, you're in this bottle, you're in this bottle, and this bottle is better than that bottle. We're all the same. What we should be arguing about is money. Now, I will talk about economic class. I'd love to see Black people come up. That's a thing. But I'm not going to talk about the differences in skin color. Skin color makes no difference. Get your pockets up and we'll have a different conversation.
All right. Andre, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what Nick Fuentes said and then also what Nicole just mentioned.
Well, I would say I've been a big follower. I would say very critical of Nick over the years. I think that the people that surround Nick have always been very degenerate and just they talk all this talk. America's dying. Oh my goodness, America. We don't have any white kids. And then like they've never had a girlfriend or, you know, they're still in mommy's basement. It's like, okay, come on. If this is the America First movement, then America First is dead. But I think that what Nick does represent is a growing frustration with Gen Z, and of course amongst a lot of young white men. I mean, it's something that is very obvious today. And people say he's a racist. I mean, yeah, he is a racist. I mean, I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying that's just how he is. He's looking at things in a racialistic lens. Some people do that. I do that. I look at things in a racialistic lens. The people that claim that they are racist are not racist because they hate that people exist or they are different. But it's acknowledgement that, race is real. We are different. We do have different identities and cultures and things that we bring to the table. And to ignore that brings us to this point today where we think that, well, we can have the country be so diverse and have, Indians and all these other people here. And it's like, well, we're not compatible. And the cultures are not compatible. And then also the demographics, as they're shifting, are not favorable to the people who've always been here. Black and white Americans have been here for at least 400 years, and if not more, coming through this country and have made this country what it is. And we're bringing all these people over here who are going to be combative and hostile to us. Black people are opening the door as if they're going to be friends with them. No, they're the first ones to be aggressive and hostile to us and say, we don't want to deal with you niggas either. It's just as much as we don't want to deal with the white people. Mm-hmm. We're not realizing that this entire great replacement talk that many people talk about is not something that's only happening to the white community or to European society or to European countries. It's also happening to Black people in our own communities. The first problem that we have is we have immigrants who will come into our community. And what do? Segregate themselves and try to do everything they can to strip the money and take as much as they can. And niggas will sit back and still blame the white man, but not actually combat the obvious problem that we have with immigration and try to come up with a solution to build our own areas up. So when it comes to Nick and what he's talking about, when people say he's a racist and all this other stuff, I mean, it is what it is. This is the times that we're dealing with. People are going to become more and more racist, more and more aggressive towards the racial identity, the changing racial demographics in this country. And we have to view it as just something that is natural at this point and operate in a way that is more, I would say, compassionate to other people's existence. Of course, not hostile or aggressive and like, we need to get rid of these people. I don't think that he's on that line of thinking, just more of, we need to wake up and realize the reality of race in this country.
All right. Shelley, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, again, I'm not a Nick Fuentes fan, but I said a couple of weeks ago that what we're seeing now is we're seeing, I guess I'll call it a backlash. We have seen a backlash from minorities and Black and brown people and other protected groups being protected for so long. And now that the DEI shield, if you will, is largely gone, now we're getting the reactions from those people who at least felt marginalized under that particular process. That's number one. Andre, I wanted to follow up with something you mentioned as well. I think on the PBD broadcast or maybe in your other videos that I've seen. You talked about, KJ asked you about the left. You mentioned something. I thought this was a it kind of went a little past people, I think. You talked about the left, KJ, but you also talked about, Andre, the left and the right, how both of those groups actually, I guess I'm using this word, exploit. I don't think you use that word, but I'm using that word, how they exploit this issue of race and maybe even more specifically Black people and how, so I wanted you to kind of flesh that out a little bit more.
Well, I think I mentioned the Jewish community. And how they exploit the racial problem and the racial question in this country. And they've always done this historically. And we've seen this throughout many places throughout Europe and throughout much of Southern Europe and throughout the Middle East. They've always done this. And I'm not saying that it's every Jewish person. I mean, let's get that out the way. I don't think it's the entirety of every Jewish person worldwide, but we're talking about organized world Jewry. They've always operated in a way that has taken advantage of the racial chaos within a country or the ethnic chaos in a surrounding region or peninsula, or wherever they exist. So I love calling that out because it's something that a lot of Black people are not aware of. They don't ever want to talk about this question because they've been told that, well, Jews are the good whites. And, they're okay. They're our friends and our allies, and we have to do the work with them. No, we don't. We really don't have to. If we want to look at how things are operating in this country, these are the people who are pushing much of the racial division. They're okay with this racial conflict because they have always thrived in this chaos and confusion when it comes to race relations, because it's always been a rejection of nationalism. This entire fight that we're having right now with race and identity in America really comes down to them suppressing nationalism in this country. They don't want people to have a purpose and a sense of direction and a sense of identity. They want everyone to be in this globalistic, we're all this reading rainbow. Everyone is in this hodgepodge. Oh, it's a melting pot. It's not a fucking melting pot. America has a specific identity, and mainly with two people. That's it. Two people have existed in this country for the last 400 years. And that's it. There's no melting pot. There's I would say, a dual system, a dual set of cultures that exist. But really, we have one united culture, the American identity, American culture. Black people have their culture, white people have their culture. But this idea that we can do this, Care Bear, this is what's killing us. And this frustration is being seen from people like Nick Fuentes, like myself, who don't want to live like this anymore. It's cancerous. It's parasitical to our existence and our survival. We can't do it anymore. So when it comes to the right will sit back, especially Black conservatives.
Let me just jump in real quick there before you go. Before you go back to talking about the right. So I gotta push back on you a little bit there. Couple things. So I feel like you contradicted yourself. So on one hand, you talk about viewing, with Nick Fuentes and sort of it's a natural view, the racial view, this racialized view of the world, of America. But then on the other hand, you talk about this idea of nationalism. And so to me, nationalism directly contradicts the idea of viewing everything primarily through a racialized lens. Because when this is the idea of sort of like the Marxists, this is why they want us to view things through a racialized lens. This is why they want us, to be divided based off of religion and things like that, because it totally is an opposition of a nationalized lens. If we all come together under patriotism, under the flag, under the red, white, and blue, then we come together not as Black people, not as white people, not as Jews, not as, Christians and things like that. We come together under one flag, one national
God.
Right. Yeah. So I'm trying to understand how you kind of bring that together with this sort of racialized lens. I mean, when you talk like that, it's sort of Marxist to me.
No, it's completely antipodal to what Marx would propose. When I'm talking of nationalism, we're looking at the United States. And the racial makeup of the United States is in majority Black and white. Now we have a growing Hispanic population that's coming in, but historically Black and white Americans. So we have a unifying one culture, American culture, identity. We all call ourselves American. I think it's something that we all do. But I still have a culture, being Black. And if we had someone white up here, they would say that I have a culture as well. And also expanding beyond that. Based on where you live on the side of the country, if you're on the East Coast, you have a certain culture. If you're living on the West Coast, you have a certain culture. So these things are very delicate and very well entrenched in who we are. Now, to understand nationalism, you have to understand, what is a people? What is a nation? A nation is a people for common ancestry, common belief, common language, common faith, all these things. And what most of the people on the right currently, I would see from a lot of the conservative sector, they talk about being patriotic. That's cool. But they reject the identity of the nature of the nation. They believe that anyone can become an American just simply because they sign a piece of paper. No, you become an American by blood. You become an American by time and sacrifice, commitment. Just don't become an American because you like Grey's Anatomy and like Dexter, or you like to go to Burger King and eat burgers. I don't really care about that. You are an American based on your historical position in the country and what your family has sacrificed, what your family has given. That is true nationalism. What the Marxists put out is economic internationalism. That's it. But even with Marx understood that the nation is important. Marx didn't sit back and say, the nation it needs to be completely destroyed. His view of the economic conditions of a nation should be, of course, molded around the people. But he wasn't entirely against the idea of nations existing. That kind of goes against nature.
Well, what I'm referring to, though, is sort of what this new type of Marxism is we're seeing bubble up on the left, sort of a cultural Marxism. So where they have replaced the idea of economics division with the racial division within the United States. And so I feel like they've taken hold of that and have been able to really run with it because of the legacy, if that's what you want to call it, in the historical context of slavery within America and the West. And so now they have been using that as sort of emotional tie, and sort of that divisive inner workings within the country. And so to me, instead of us always looking at everything through the lens of race, I mean, it's antiquated. I can't even believe now in 2026, we are still talking about black this, white that. I mean, now, first of all, the country is so mixed, now. And then, we would be transcending race. But the only people that I find that really, are bent on this is Black Americans. If you go to the Caribbean, if you go to Africa, for instance, if I go, I'm not a Black person there. I am a Yankee. I go to Trinidad and Tobago. They're not looking at me as a Black. Well, actually, they think I'm African. But once they hear me speak and everything, oh, that American. It's not the Black girl. And same thing when I go overseas. So to me, it's this cultish. This cultist way within America where everyone is fixated on race. And that's not a culture. I'm sorry, I disagree with that. A culture is, I'm an urbanite. I'm from Baltimore. I'm a city girl. Nicole, she's a country girl. She's got a culture for the country. I'm city and I like the concrete. I don't have to see grass every day. I like to be able to go out at midnight and get a full 5-course meal, this type of stuff. But when we start to, segregate ourselves based strictly on race, it doesn't even make sense a lot of the times, because just because we're Black doesn't mean we have things in common. It's more so about where we live, right? What part of the country we come from, what even generational differences, those types of things, in my opinion.